Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I want to especially recognize all those folks that were told to be here by 7:45 and we're not starting till this late. Thanks so much for being here and welcome to the 2023 South Texas All Hazards Conference. My name is Tony Forina and I'll be serving as your Master of Ceremonies for this morning and this afternoon. It is my distinct honor to be here. My usual job, I am the Field Operations Director for Hidalgo County Precinct 4 Commissioner Eli Torres. So I thank her for the opportunity to be able to spend this day with you guys and make sure that we have a successful conference. Now, for the last 9 years, the South Texas All Hazards Conference has provided all of our first responders, emergency management personnel, and essential employees with access to experts in emergency preparation from all over the United States. This year is no different. We are pleased to announce that we have more than 1,600 attendees. As a matter of fact, that's part of our delay this morning because we were expecting 1,600, which was a great number. Somehow we've gotten up to 2,200, so we'll take that and we'll continue to grow. So close to 2,200 attendees, more than 70 experts and 90 exhibitors this year that you'll find. And your attendance today is a reflection of your willingness to remain on the cutting edge of the preparedness field. Something new that we've incorporated this year to the All Hazards Conference, you'll be able to see the stage right. We have added a special hearing impaired component. We recognize that serving our entire community means just that. So si no pueden hablar inglés y necesitan las clases en español, obviamente te podemos ayudar. But this year, we've added the sign component, and we want to recognize those members of our deaf community that are here with us. I would ask for a round of applause, but instead, I'm going to ask you to put your hands in the air and do this, and let them know that we're glad they're here. Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to ask you to please rise as we prepare for the presentation of the colors by the City of McAllen Fire Department Honor Guard and our national anthem being performed by Dr. Christine Philip Ibarra.
Twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
Thank you, Dr. Christine Philip Ibarra. And now, ladies and gentlemen, join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order! Oh!
Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please remain standing. We will honor our fallen first responders, officers, and servicemen and women who have perished while answering the call or while serving our great country. These individuals possess extraordinary courage and compassion for all who dedicated their lives to serving and protecting our communities and our nation. Today, we honor their memory. We also take a moment to remember all of those lives that were lost to the COVID-19 pandemic. They may be gone, but their memory will never be forgotten. Please join me in a moment of silence. Ladies and gentlemen, before we take our seats, I'd like to invite to the podium. He is the Assistant Chief of Staff for Hidalgo County Precinct 1 Commissioner David Fuentes, and he is the City Commissioner of District 6 for the City of McAllen, Commissioner Pepe Cabeza de Vaca, to lead us in our invocation and give us the welcome on behalf of the City of McAllen.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Well, on behalf of Javier Villalobos, our mayor in the city of McAllen, and the city council. We welcome all of you guys to the city of McAllen, to our beautiful McAllen Performing Arts Center. We start this ninth annual South Texas All Hazards Conference. And this helps us to be better trained, to be better educated in case of an emergency. I'm very excited to see all these faces, all these people here. You guys are great professionals, and we want to thank you for all you do and for keeping our communities and our families safe. So please give yourself a round of applause. Well, as you guys know, the South Texas All Hazards Conference is the second largest in the state of Texas of its kind, and is the only one that is offered at no cost to the participants. So this conference is so important because of your commitment, that you're already great, but you're willing to learn a little bit more about your peers and be better prepared in case of an emergency. So we want to thank you for that as well. So at this time, please bow your heads. And I ask for God's blessing on each and every one of you today and every day as we work to protect and secure our community and all of our residents now and whenever disaster may strike. Gracious God, make each of us an instrument of your grace. We have in us into community showing forth to power and tenderness. Bless us and our differences and give us the courage to stand together and respond to the disaster, the emergency, or the danger that our community may face so that we can protect our neighbors. We call on you today to gather us in your love to serve our brothers and sisters in Christ, and let us always remember that our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for your service, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to McAllen.
All right, we're going to be sitting for a while, so if you want to get that last stretch in, now would be the good time to do so. We'd like to welcome everybody that went up to the third tier of seats. You know they're free, and you don't have to sit that far back, right? You could, es cosa tuya, you'll be all right. Our first speaker today, we'd like to welcome to the podium Hidalgo County Judge Richard F. Cortez, presently serving in his second term as county judge. He also serves as the Emergency Management Director for the county, and his initiatives include honoring our county veterans, educating the public on the importance of mental health, and showing the world all of the wonderful things that Hidalgo County has to offer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Judge Richard Cortez.
You know, I envy his voice. Good job, Tony. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to South Texas All Hazards Conference. You're in Hidalgo County, and this is home to many brave men and women. We're also the 8th most populous county in the state of Texas at 254, so we're pretty proud of that. You know, this is an important annual event, so I will begin by congratulating everyone, and especially our Hidalgo County Healthcare and Human Services Department, as well as Hidalgo County's Office of Emergency Management and TX for 9 successful years of this event. You know, this year marks the beginning of my second term of office as Hidalgo County Judge. My first term, as everyone in this room knows, better than most, was consumed with one of the most significant emergency operating challenges of our lifetimes, the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, yesterday was the 3rd anniversary of our first person that got infected with this disease. As the Emergency Management Director of Hidalgo County, I relied heavily on the counsel and the expertise of many people in this room. For that, I am grateful. The first year of this pandemic, 2020, was perhaps the most challenging for the first responders and emergency coordinators in the history of this county. Yet, response coordinated is exactly what we did. Much of our actions were the result of candid communication, with the type of communication that begins with events such as the South Texas All Hazards Conference. The result of this collective wisdom, experience, and expertise of so many people gathered here today put us on a path to recovery, even as we were in the midst of fog of war with this disease. The very experts who advised me throughout this pandemic are advising me against declaring this pandemic over. But I can say that we are on solid footing as this pandemic becomes an endemic in our society. The lessons we have learned so far about this disease continue to involve much the way the lessons we have learned about emergency response are evolving. Well, I'll leave it to the collective expertise of professionals to reflect and discuss over in the next 2 days here in this session. I do want to share that I do believe that the most profound truth to emerge from this pandemic, like many truths, is the simple truth that revealed itself more strongly than ever over the past 3 years. That truth that I speak of this is that what defines a community is what we do for one another. It can be a community of first responders and what we do in the next 2 days in this conference. Or it can be a community of healthcare workers or educators or delivery people. All of those services became essential components of our ability to weather the pandemic storm. Were they differences of opinion regarding the emergency response? Did it create divisions? Absolutely. But we are in a better place than we were 3 years ago, despite of these divisions. We're in a better place because of the wisdom that was collectively gathered on common ground that bridged those divisions. That is our strength as a community. I would guess that at some level, everyone who is gathered here came here because of this eternal truth. Because at some level, we're all motivated to help one another because we're all part of a community. The strength of that truth is that it allows us to look at what divides us more objectively, with dispassionately, and learn how to bridge those differences to improve our community. In the case of Hidalgo County's response over the past 3 years, I can objectively declare that our ability to communicate emergency preparedness and emergency response to the deaf and persons with disabilities can and must be improved. So I'm proud to see that for the first time in the history of this conference, indeed perhaps for the first time in this state, a special tract of how first responders communicate with the deaf is part of this year's program. I'm particularly proud of a young woman whom I have known her entire life, a woman I can tell you and call a friend and a neighbor, a woman who was born deaf and has been helping put together this learning track as an intern of my office. Her name is Felicia Cuera. Felicia, can you stand up for just a moment? This woman is the embodiment of that simple truth. So many people have helped her grow into adulthood by overcoming communication challenges. Now she has taken what she has learned during her lifetime to help her community communicate with deaf people like her to be better prepared for future emergencies. That is what personification of what South Texas All Hazard Conference is all about. I hope that this is also your motivation over the next 2 days to redefine our community by looking for new opportunities to help one another and become the best we can become. So with that, I wish you a productive conference and thank you for your service to your community. Again, welcome to Hidalgo County.
How about another round of applause for Judge? I've had the pleasure of calling him Commissioner, Mayor, and now Judge Richard Cortez. We appreciate his warm welcome today. Our next speaker is Assistant Chief Tony Peña, the Region 3 State Coordinator for the Texas Department of Emergency Management. The man has no patience. He's not even going to let me read his bio here. Prior to joining TDEM, Mr. Peña dedicated a majority of his career to law enforcement and even served as the Hidalgo County Emergency Management Coordinator for several years. During his time, Mr. Peña has worked through several disasters, events including Hurricane Dolly, Hurricane Harvey, and the COVID-19 pandemic. It feels like he's breathing down my neck right about now. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome everybody's friend, Assistant Chief Tony Peña.
Good morning. Everybody bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, awake? First and foremost, on behalf of Chief Kidd, Chancellor John Sharp, Governor Greg Abbott, we extend a big howdy to all from TDEM, the Texas Division of Emergency Management. Welcome. Great big thanks to all of you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before you. Welcome to the annual South Texas All Hazards Conference. It should actually be not only the All Hazards Conference, but the All Discipline Conference. As I look into the audience, I see a lot of familiar faces and some new ones. I recognize folks from emergency management, law enforcement, fire service, public health, public works, and other disciplines. I see voluntary and non-governmental agencies, and I see folks from the private sector. Just like the conference, emergency management is all about disciplines coming together to bring order to chaos and normalcy back to our residents' lives. The C's come into mind, and then we come together when things go awry. Communication, cooperation, coordination, and collaboration. And I want to add one more C to that one, camaraderie. The latter is one of the most important things that we do in our everyday life. We get to know each other, and we meet, and it's always been said that we don't want to be exchanging business cards on the side of the road. We want to meet way beforehand, learn about each other, learn about our capabilities and what we can do and what we can't do. That's camaraderie, being able to help each other, being able to be part of the community, as the judge said. Conferences and training sessions like this are designed to help build that camaraderie. Some of you might already know what it is. We all have a common denominator, and a lot of you all probably already know what it is. It's called public service. Each and every one of us here is here because of the public service. We're here to serve our residents and serve the folks around us, especially during times of chaos. At TDEM, we recognize that every incident and disaster starts and ends at the local level. We're here to let you know that we are here to support your efforts from response to recovery. Personally, and everybody here from TDEM, we all have a vested interest in the community because we all live here or close by. It doesn't start when the incident begins. It starts before that and continues after the immediate chaos ends. We must constantly and continuously work together at every stage of a disaster. TDEM has seen tremendous growth in the last couple of years, and not just doubling our workforce, but adding other elements that will allow us to support your efforts. In the last couple of years, since we went to Texas A&M and out from under DPS, we went from 240 full-time employees to just shy of 400. And by just shy of 400, I think we're at 399, and probably by the end of the month, we'll be over 400. Texas is a huge state. Being that large brings growth, and disasters come with growth. Did you know that Texas leads the nation in natural disasters? A lot of you probably do. To close some of our gaps, we're expanding our footprint across the state to better assist and support you all, our local partners, to protect the lives and property of our fellow Texans and our residents and visitors. In Region 3 alone, we went from 5 persons 13 years ago to just about at 28 now. And we're fixing to hire one more, so we'll be at 29. It's amazing what the growth has done. We created the new County Liaison Officer Program, and I have all of the County Liaison Officers are here. We'll get to them here in a minute, and all the rest of the TDEM staff. The expectation is that the County Liaison Officers will become an integral part of the response, of the initial response, much like the County Agent Program supported by our sister agencies, AgriLife, TEEX, and everybody else. CLOs are providing more comprehensive state support for Texas communities. It's improving emergency management capability statewide. TDEM is also preparing the new generation of emergency managers for Texas and the rest of the country. This Friday, a couple of days from now, we'll be graduating 17 cadets from the first of its kind in the nation, TDM Emergency Management Academy. We started with 20. A couple of them got jobs while they were there and decided to go on, and one didn't make it, though. It's an intensive 8-month course that they went through. These cadets came from throughout the state of Texas and some from out of state. We're proud to say that 4 of the 17 that are graduating are from the Rio Grande Valley. We have Cassandra Lara from Los Fresnos, Aaron Matthew Alvarez from Edinburgh, Andrew Villarreal from FAR, and Adriana Benson from McAllen. And all 17 have already been hired in some capacity at TDM. TDM, I asked somebody else to do these talking points for me, and they start talking about COVID. Nobody wants to hear about COVID anymore, right? I don't even want to talk about COVID. That's a never-ending disaster for all of us. You know, TDM was activated for approximately 3 years with a remote SOC during COVID. Would help distribute 30.6 million vaccines, activated 32,394 medical staff. Overall, that whole response was right at about just shy of $8 billion that was spent. We still, to this date, are distributing PPE for that event, and we're working the recovery side. Unfortunately, incidents, when they occur, don't stop when the action stops. We still have activities at TDM going, supporting the border operations, law enforcement. We still have people working in Uvalde after the incident there. We have people across Texas working bus operations. We're doing all sorts of things that we wouldn't normally think are in the realm of emergency management. But we all have that clause, other duties is assigned. The PIV card, it's a similar, well, it is a federal ID. We have a booth set up here to help get some of y'all the PIV card. And I could go on and on and on about everything that goes on, but this conference is about you all and about coming to a scene and with all disciplines to support each other. I know that some of y'all have already met our local TDM representatives, but I want everybody to stand up and face a crowd that works for TDM. I don't know where the rest of them are. There's some more in the back there. So they're all scattered here to help support this operation, this conference, and I look forward to shaking hands, taking my hat off, and meeting a bunch of y'all, and hugging on old folks that I've known for a long time. And I don't mean by old folks because, you know, I just had a birthday and I'm old now, so we're not going to talk about that. So I'm not going to name them all off, but, you know, we have everybody here. Thank you for your time. Please enjoy the conference. God bless Texas, and God bless all of you. All is well.
How about another round of applause for Tony Peña, ladies and gentlemen? Our next speaker is Eddie Olivares. He is the Chief Administrative Officer of Hidalgo County Health and Human Services. He's responsible for the implementation of various public health and human services programs, and he's been involved with healthcare for over 35 years. But he'll be the first one to tell you he's not a doctor. Remember that. During the pandemic, he led the health department and its employees in responding to this worldwide health event, and you talk about coordination. I remember those days during the pandemic of everything reaching out to the county commissioners, reaching out to the different municipalities. If there was somebody that could help vaccinate and help get people taken care of, Eddie was at the hub of that. So I'd like to introduce you to, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Eddie Olivares.
Well, actually, thank you very much for that introduction, but it's not me, it's the team, it's all of you. It's the thousands of public school nurses that assisted, it's the thousands of healthcare professionals, and the thousands of vocational school students who helped, along with all our firefighters, police officers, first responders, paramedics. I cannot stress the importance of that. But it's not about me. Right now, I have the honor of presenting a couple of awards and assisting with a couple of awards. This year's South Texas All Hazards Conference Award is going to be presented to a gentleman who I just love. It's that simple. This man has gone beyond the call of duty, done more than anyone ever expected. He and his team and his fellow firefighters supported hundreds of thousands of people during this pandemic. I'd like to give this year's award presented to Fire Chief Antonio Lopez, Tony Lopez, for dedication, loyalty, and commitment to our community. Your constant efforts, continuous support are gratefully appreciated. Chief Tony, come forward this way. Everyone, a true hero.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As first responders, we never think that a day like this would come for us, because it's our job that we do every day. Excuse me. It's a job that we signed up for. It's a job that we leave our families every day, sometimes for 24 hours. Us as an emergency management, sometimes for a week. Could be 2 weeks before we come back to our family. And one person that knows that for sure is my wife, that's here in the audience today. Irelia, thank you for supporting me. And my parents for instilling the morals and the ethics that us as responders go out to the field every single day and take care of the people in their worst times. And that's what firefighters, law enforcement, paramedics, nurses, public health officials, everybody that does this is what we signed up for. That's really what we did, or doing it for. On this, I had so much support in the sense that in 2016, we developed the medical countermeasures plan in the city of Wesco Fire Department. I took over as fire chief in 2015, and I knew, because working with mentors like Eddie Olivares with the public health department, Chief Saldaña, emergency management, Tony Peña, emergency management, and everybody else has been a mentor for me. I knew as fire chief, we needed to add another component into our response. In the fire service, we have suppression response, we put out fires. Rescues for car accidents. We also have EMS, we have a paramedic program, and we take care of people in need in medical emergencies. I saw that we needed to, because of the partnerships that we had way before, we needed to add a public health component to our department's response. And that's in 2016, came up with a medical countermeasures plan with the help of Monica, which is up here. She was at the county at the time and helped us, and she moved on to the state, continued to help us develop that program. We tested that program, and we had a plan that we had on the shelf in case. And 2020 happened and COVID happened. There was a lot of moving parts, but we knew that we were ready. And we assisted the Hidalgo County Public Health Department with rolling out the vaccinations. Just in the city of Wesco, we were having 2 to 3 vaccination clinics a week. And I want to thank all the paramedics and firefighters in the city of Wesco, all our emergency management team that is here today, from Joe Pedraza, our operations section chief, Richard Stubbs, our logistics section chief, Gus Ramirez, which is our safety in the COVID clinics, and all the staff at City of Wesco that took part outside of their normal realm of their daily operations, to inputting after somebody gave a vaccine, to inputting that information into the state system. So this is something that I will accept on behalf of the whole city of Wesco, because it's not me that can make it all happen. It's the team that we put together, because you have to have, the way I say, Eddie, every time, and we've had that conversation, Chief Saldaña, is you always try to surround yourself with people that are better than you, smarter than you, and that's the team that I have. So thank you very much for this award, and I'll accept it on the behalf of the city of Wesco.
I'm going to call forward Lieutenant Torrillo. Lieutenant Torrillo is with the Fire Department of New York. He's the keynote speaker today, but he is presenting an award today that we'd like to recognize someone in particular. Lieutenant Torrillo, briefly, can you give us an update?
Thank you, everybody. I've been traveling to Walter Reed Medical Center to visit the soldiers when they get back stateside, missing arms and legs. It's my way of saying thank you for taking up the fight after we took the hit on September 11th. And then I started making these plaques for other people, and I'm presenting one today. I'm presenting it to Ricardo Saldana, Hidalgo County Emergency Management Coordinator. He's a lifelong resident of Mission, Texas, serving 33 years with the Mission Fire Department, 17 years as their fire chief. In his role, he takes responsibility for Hidalgo County's logistical response to all safety hazards, including the COVID-19 pandemic. We're wishing him many more years of health and success. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just not a regular plaque. You can't buy it from me, and I don't sell. I present them to special people. On this plaque carries the statue of the Twin Towers. It's a mini monument to the day. And in this shelf that supports the Twin Towers is a little piece of steel that was touched by the support system of the Twin Towers. It was also touched by the soil where Flight 93 crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It was touched at the point of impact of the Pentagon by United Airlines Flight 175, and also the soil outside the courthouse in Guantanamo, Cuba, where I'm currently representing the United States against the 5 terrorists who attacked us. And I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm going through that trial right now, I'm going to bring back justice for what they did to us.
With this in mind, Chief Saldana, everyone honor Chief Saldana.
I want to thank the lieutenant for this wonderful award or plaque, but this is not for me. It is with all those people that I've been involved with. Mr. Olivares, this goes to him. To each and every one of you all in this room goes to you. The organizers of this event goes to you. It's not about me, it's about all of us here. As some of those speakers earlier mentioned, collaboration, communications, making friends, working long hours, working long weeks. We just went through 2 years of, pardon my French, hell. We survived it, we're here again. But this goes to each and every one of you all again, and I want to dedicate this to those people on that day, first responders, citizens, public works, military, that were impacted by this significant event. I know we already had a moment of silence, but please, let's do this for those individuals that lost their lives on this day, horrible day. If you would please join me for at least a minute. Again, thank you, Lieutenant. Mr. Olivares, this is yours also. I want to thank you all for being here today, and may you all have a blessed and wonderful day and enjoy the conference.
All right, how about another round of applause for Chief Ricardo Saldana? Again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome all of our emergency personnel, first responders, law enforcement officials, as well as the city, state, local, and federal employees. The 9th annual conference is organized by the Hidalgo County Health and Human Services, Hidalgo County Emergency Management, the City of McAllen, and the Texas Department of Emergency Management, with primary funding coming from the Texas Department of State Health Services. We'd like to thank all of our sponsors who contribute year in and year out to this event, because without their partnership, this would not be possible. For the 9th year in a row, Siddons Martin Emergency Group has been a platinum sponsor, and we want to thank them for their invaluable support. How about a round of applause for them? We'd also like to recognize our other loyal platinum sponsors, the Lower Rio Grande Valley Development Council, Metro Fire, Lone Star Emergency Group, and STC Motorola Solutions. Give them a round of applause. And to our gold sponsors from Ashbrit, Blue Wave Express Car Wash, and JVC Kenwood, give them a round of applause. This year we have 7 silver sponsors who have supported us throughout the years. Give them all a round of applause, please. All right, here's where we got to pay attention because there's food involved. This year, lunch will be on your own starting at noon. Then we'll return at 1:30 for our afternoon sessions at the convention center. And yes, we expect you back at 1:30. Don't pull one of those lunch ran late. That doesn't work. As a reminder, all of our sessions during the All Hazards Conference are TCOL certified. This year, instead of printing a program, we have a new app called Whova. You can use Whova to check session times, room locations, session descriptions, or read speaker bios. If you have not done so yet, scan the QR code and download the Whova app onto your phone. You can find it in the Apple Store and Google Play. One of the cool features of the Whova app is the passport contest. We know how much we all love to win. On the homepage of today's event, click the passport contest button. It will take you to a section with a QR code and a list of 12 vendors. Visit each of those vendors during the conference and have them scan your QR code. If you collect all 12 vendors, you'll be entered into a drawing to win a door prize. At 2:30 p.m., join us in the exhibit hall for snacks and refreshment. This will be your time to network with your fellow attendees and visit with all of our vendors. And the concession stand in the exhibit hall will also be open all day long. Today, we begin our sessions right around 8:15 at the Convention Center. The South Texas Immunization Summit will be in the Grand Ballroom all day long. And before you leave tomorrow, join us again in the exhibit hall at 2:30 for refreshments and snacks. The concession stand in the exhibit hall will also be open all day. You know, the concession stand must have paid some big bucks to get this many plugs of the event today. During the conference, we hope that you'll share with all of your friends on social media. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'll be posting pictures and updates throughout the conference. Make sure you use the hashtag, that's the little # 2023 STAHC. Use the acronym for South Texas All Hazard Conference, hashtag 2023 STAHC, and we'll be sure to retweet and like your post. Now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. When you think of the name Gruber, you think of Hans Gruber from Die Hard, right? Am I the only one that does that? Sorry. Dave Gruber currently serves as the Texas Department of State Health Services Associate Commissioner for the Regional and Local Health Operations, Border Health, Emergency Preparedness, and the Texas Center for Infectious Disease. He spent 21 years as a member of the U.S. Navy. After retiring, he was the senior planner for the Dallas County Health Department in Dallas, Texas, followed by service with the New Jersey Department of Health and Senior Services, the Office of Emergency Medical Services, EMS, and the New Jersey State Public Health and Environmental Laboratories. As every good New Jersey resident, he did his best to get back to Texas as quickly as possible. He has a BA in microbiology from Rutgers University and his master's in strategy from the U.S. Army Command and General Officer Staff College. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dave Gruber.
Good morning, everybody. That really was me a few years ago, so. Telling people I just got my Medicare card, and that was the first time I felt old, so anyway. Well, good morning, everybody. What an honor to be among all of you, and thank you all for taking your time from your busy schedules to come to this great conference. I've been coming here for quite a few years, and I can assure you that it's time well worth spent. As noted, I did spend some time in the Navy, and there was this old saying in the Navy that CAGs come and CAGs go, and CAG stands for Carrier Air Group Commander, and that's the big guy on the block out on an aircraft carrier, runs a whole bunch of stuff, and is probably one of the most important people at sea on an aircraft carrier. But as they say, CAGs come and CAGs go, and we'll come back to that. So as Associate Commissioner, I represent a component of our state system tasked with preparing for and responding to any emergency or adversity, and I've been asked to share some thoughts about our public health approach as it relates to why we're all here today. Those who participate in a multidisciplinary event are part of a mega community, a community which might not normally interact with each other, but under certain circumstances are brought together by a common vital interest. Making this all work is a challenge and is the challenge. That's why we're here, to meet and that challenge to develop, learn, and discuss the leadership and integration necessary to manage resources regardless of the size, scope, or scale of a response to an adversity. Our approach to adversity management is through network centricity, and that can simply be defined as a focus on an integrated, multidisciplinary, coordinated systems approach that is applied to a defined undertaking. Now, network centricity has 4 components to it. The first is the organic resources that are present on a daily basis. So each one of you is a component of that, whether it's fire, EMS, police, public health, hospitals, physicians, FQHCs, TCEQ, anything that normally occurs on a daily basis is part of the organic resources. But when an event occurs, there are some specialty resources that come into play, and depending on that event depends on what those resources might be. So that's the second component, those specialty activities that occur in response to an adversity. The third part is very critical, obviously, and it's leadership. And those who lead in these types of mega communities are meta leaders. They have to be able to not only lead their own organizations, but lead all the organizations that are asked to respond to an event. And finally, there's integration. Those are policies, the information technology, the organizational and document structure that's required to guide a large-scale event and all those who participate in that event. Now, the framework of a network-centric approach transcends events and times and accounts for CAGs coming and CAGs going. So we're here today to ensure that when commissioners or associate commissioners, judges, chiefs, CEOs, providers, elected leaders, and those responsible for our health and safety come and go, that the system that we all operate under, the system responsible for life-saving and life-sustaining activities, for protection of our personal and shared resources, the system that supports our combined approach to preparing for and responding to emergencies doesn't come and go. That's why we're here today. That's why this conference is so important. I wish you all a great conference and take a lot out of it and take it back to your organizations. Thank you very much.
You know, some of the discussions we're having backstage is on hair. And as we're all getting a little older, we're kind of like, what happened? There's hope. Thank you, Mr. Gruber, for sharing that hope, sir. Wow. Our next special guest is Tony Kreitz. He is the Deputy Agency Director for Texas A&M Engineering Extension Services, or TEEX. He serves as the Deputy Director, Chief Operations Officer, and in this role, he's responsible for overseeing the daily operations of the agency as well as developing and implementing the strategic plans to ensure TEEX continues to provide realistic, relevant, and impactful training and services to all of our customers. Mr. Kreitz has over 20 years of experience in fire service and emergency management, where he held the rank of Fire Chief and Emergency Management Coordinator. He has served in all the major components of the fire service, including fire and EMS operations, hazardous materials, wildlife firefighting, command, and emergency management. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Tony Kreitz.
Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Great to see you all. You know, one of the things that we like to have at TEEX is really our mission, is where we make a difference providing training, developing practical solutions, and saving lives. And every day we get up and I try to make a difference in what I do every day at TEEX. And what I want to commend you all on is coming and supporting the South Texas All Hazard Conference. You're truly making a difference by being here, not only in your lives, but the lives of your families and the communities you serve. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you for every day you guys go out and take care of all the folks that are down here and the citizens of Texas, and it's something that I commend you on and appreciate very much. So thank you for being here today, and thank you for supporting the conference, and look forward to learning and meeting all of you and going through this part of where we're at. So what I was asked to speak on today was kind of the role of TEEX in state disasters. What do we do and how we fit? And where I need to start is why we are who we are. So we're part of Texas A&M University system. In the system, there are 11 state agencies, or 11 universities and 9 state agencies. We are one of those state agencies. And with, as Chief Pena talked about, the Texas Division of Emergency Management, TEEX, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, and the Texas A&M Forest Service, we bring to bear a large part of the response for the state of Texas. It exists in all of our agencies, and what's really happened as we've become part of the university system, that synergy has really come together, and we have a great relationship to serve and provide assistance to the state of Texas. And that's kind of where we are and why we are where we are. We really serve 2 primary missions for the state of Texas. Our first one is training. When you think about TEEX, the best way to describe who we are is if you think of any city or county and the services they provide, we provide training in those areas with a heavy emphasis on public safety. And so you think about fire service, we provide training in that, hazardous materials, rescue, law enforcement, public works, cybersecurity, economic development, anything that you can think about in your communities, we probably have training or we can develop and build that kind of training and technical assistance. That's our primary mission that we serve, for the state of Texas as well as the nation and across the world. We do training internationally. The second part that we really hold is the response component for the state of Texas. We have some teams that are based upon for the state that we respond out, and it really falls into our urban search and rescue core competency and our public works core competency. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we fit in that and what we serve. We cover 2 primary emergency support functions for the state of Texas. The first one is ESF 9, which is our search and rescue function. And the second one is ESF 3, which is Public Works and Engineering. So at the State Operations Center, the TEEX representatives manage those 2 components for the state of Texas when the SOC is activated. We also support communications, firefighting, emergency management, public health and medical services, and oil spill and response are some of the other emergency support functions that we provide professionals to assist with the state in a response. I'm going to talk a little bit about the 2 primary ones we have, ESF 9 and ESF 3. Under TEEX, we have 2 urban search and rescue teams, Texas A&M Task Force 1 and Texas Task Force 2. Texas A&M Task Force 1 is one of the 28 federal urban search and rescue teams, which means that we can deploy on federal disasters and get called out to assist wherever we need to. The unique thing about Task Force 1 is it's also a state asset. So if we have an emergency here in the Valley or anywhere in the state of Texas, the governor can activate Task Force to come out and assist. Task Force 2 is a state asset centered out of the Dallas area that provides the same components, but they do not respond out of the state of Texas. They support that side of it. We are the busiest task force in the nation, Texas Task Force 1. They respond to more incidents and emergencies than any other one, and really provide a wide range of services. The traditional urban search and rescue component, the heavy shoring, the ability to do collapse structures and things like that, but they also do wide area search. They can come out and do that part of it. Helicopter rescue, so if you see the things during hurricanes, we work with the Texas Military Division to provide that service. And then also water rescue. That's a big component of what Task Force 1 does. Our swift water rescue teams are high-profile vehicles we supply out during times of storms and disasters and really supply a great component of that. As the storms ramp up and move through, we really get activated quite a lot as we move through the process and get to do a lot of things in the state of Texas. I had the opportunity for a while to be the ESF 9 rep at the SOC, and so I got to spend a lot of time in Austin working on some of these disasters and assisting the communities out there. The second one that we really focus on, ESF 3, Public Works and Engineering. We are home to the Texas A&M Public Works Response Team. And the Public Works Response Team is a unique entity that allows us to go out and assist communities with issues dealing with their public works. So when you think about that, water, wastewater, utilities, road debris, clearing, debris management, all falls under the Texas A&M Public Works Response Team. It's sponsored by TEEX and TDEM, and it's a component that we put together to go out and assist communities during times of disasters. We have 7 strike teams. They're activated through the State Operations Center when we need a request to go out, and it really focuses on the ability to provide service. Some of the communities that we've assisted over this last year, since it's been stood up for TEEX, we went out to the community of Carbon when they had a wildland fire that burned through. And the team went out and assisted with them bringing back their utilities and water infrastructure to get their homes and ability to service their folks. We went to the community of Zavala over Thanksgiving and Christmas break. They were having issues where they were running out of water in the city. And the teams went out and helped them develop a plan on how to solve that problem, how to get clean drinking water for their communities. And it's really been a unique thing that as it was ramped up, we went out almost 13 times this last year, and it's been a very good team to have out there. It really focuses on the experience of utilities, water and wastewater, debris management, clearance, structural safety, heavy equipment operations, fire control operations, logistics support, and unmanned aerial systems. So it provides a wide range of service to the communities that we have out there, and it's a great team that we get to stand up and move through. And so if you are all interested and want to be a part of that team, our TEEX booth is out there. Please come by. We'd love to have you as part of that team. It is a great thing to go out and help communities restore that. We always think of the response side as, the lights and sirens. We go out for the hurricanes, but really that critical infrastructure side, if you don't have water or utilities, we all know from the emergency management perspective that creates a much longer term problem than the issues that we run on. And as we go through this, one of the things that we've learned is we have to be very adaptable. COVID taught us all that. We came out from COVID, and never in my dreams did I think I would be running warehouses with PPE and COVID supplies, nor doing testing missions or issuing vaccines, and it stretched us. But what that allowed us to do is really look at how do we fit into the state and become more adaptable where we respond. And so for us, that's where we look at. We have those primary assets that we respond to the state over and over again, but we're really here to serve. Our regional training managers that are out in the 6 regions are there for your use and ability, and really we want to look at how do we fit into this and really take care of the citizens of Texas just like you guys do every day. So I appreciate you all. Thank you for the opportunity to spend a few minutes with you today and talk about TEEX. I enjoy talking about that side of it. It's a great organization to work for. Enjoy your conference. Thank you for all you do, and thanks again.
Our next speaker, we have special guest Alfredo Lozano, the acting Deputy Chief Patrol Agent of the United States Customs and Border Protection. He is responsible for planning, organizing, and directing the U.S. Border Patrol's operations throughout the RGV sector's area of responsibility. Began his Border Patrol career 20 years ago and has held various positions from field training officer to Deputy Patrol Agent in charge. In 2011, he was named Operator of the Year. Now, during his 2 decades with the Border Patrol, he's been a part of the Border Patrol Tactical Unit, known as BORTAC, led the Joint Task Force West for the Southern Border and Approaches campaign, and served as the interim agent in charge at the McAllen Border Patrol Station. A native of Florida, Lozano is a decorated United States Marine serving in support of various campaigns, including Operation Enduring Freedom. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Deputy Chief Patrol Agent Alfredo Lozano.
I appreciate that intro, but I'm just a Border Patrol agent, and my badge and cred said so. So this morning I actually parked in the veterans parking spot, but I'd gladly give that position and park into any one of you first responders. So first of all, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Alfredo Lozano. Everybody in this region knows me as Lozy. They say in the Border Patrol, if they don't give you a nickname, they don't like you. I'm sure some of you can relate. So I am the newly appointed Deputy Chief for the Rio Grande Valley sector under Chief Gloria Chavez. And I wanted to start by talking a little bit about partnerships and collaboration, such as this event, the All Hazards. They're all very vital to the preparation and responding to emergencies that disrupt the way of life. And they come from all angles. The various federal, state, and local agencies, along with the non-governmental and business partners that are all here today, are a testament to that. So your participation and the amount of people in this room does speak volumes to the importance of what we can accomplish as a unity of effort. So again, I'm very grateful for the invitation. I am very grateful for the opportunity to speak to you today. Within the Department of Homeland Security and the Border Patrol specifically, our efforts are devoted to providing the security to the nation. It's a tough job. It's a tough job for myself and for all the agents that are here in this room today, to include our partners. We do address the threats that compromise the safety and security of the communities. That's our priority, and we are all entrusted to protect and serve, as all of you know. While the criminal element will remain the focus of the law enforcement agencies in this region, we do not lose sight of the fact that emergency preparedness will always remain our priority. Historically, the chief of the Rio Grande Valley sector is assigned as what the Custom and Border Protection calls the lead field coordinator for Region 6. The Region 6 spans from New Mexico to Oklahoma to Arkansas to Texas and Louisiana. So it's very vast. Regardless of where that lead field coordinator is, as a matter of fact, our chief sends our love all the way from Tucson, Arizona We are dividing and conquering this week. She's attending a conference as well. But regardless of where the LFC is located, CBP assets from the Rio Grande Valley sector are ready to mobilize and assist with any incident requiring a coordinated response within 24 hours. So we're very mobile and flexible. As such, the Rio Grande Valley sector has dedicated an Office of Incident Management, a full-time staff, to prepare to respond to any incident. So we are prepared and committed to provide resources and then sustain our commitment until normalcy returns. Support in the past has included, but not limited to, some of the paramedics and EMTs that are wearing this uniform in this crowd. What we call BORSTAR, it's a search, trauma, and rescue unit. They usually work along the border, in the river, in the maritime, and also in the ranches. And then our Border Patrol Tactical Unit. They do respond to volatile situations. We've had a string of active shooter events at multiple schools here in this area and other regions as well. You may remember the incident that occurred in Uvalde, Texas. We also have our riverine units. They do respond across the nation for any flooding recovery and also rescue of those in distress, mainly during hurricane or inclement weather. In June of 2015, just to give you an example, a BORTAC team member did assist the state of New York to apprehend a manhunt for 2 convicted murderers. A BORTAC sniper did neutralize that individual, and the other was returned to jail. In 2017, Hurricane Maria, as most of you know, that was a natural disaster that impacted Puerto Rico. It left a path of destruction. It wiped out entire electrical grids, and it left flooding, mudslides, and also bridges that had collapsed. And so that's another example of the events that we respond to. And then in 2019, just here locally, I'm a resident of this area, and in 2019, June of that year, in areas of Cameron, Hidalgo, Willacy, we all were severely impacted by storms and flooding. My family, as a matter of fact, a part of that as well. In my previous position as deputy chief, I've been in this area for 4 months. I spent 2 years in Washington, D.C. While I was there, it was just as tough, probably the toughest it's ever been. In that capacity, I did respond as incident commander to multiple mass migration events, facilitating the expansion of medical, security, transport, processing, expansion of detention space. Most memorable, or what may come to mind, is Del Rio during the Haitian migration in 2021, El Paso's major influx in 2022, and then coastal support to Miami, who's had multiple landings from Cuba and Haiti just over this past year. Also over this past year, if some of you are watching what's going on in this specific region, the RGV over about the past 18 months has gone from being #1 in activity or encounters to being #4 behind El Paso, behind Del Rio, and behind Tucson. We hit the 1 million mark for encounters just a couple of days ago. And I'll say this, a quote that has stuck with me throughout the years, but a Marine Corps general once said, "Generals win the battles, but partnerships and resources win the war." And so that rings true to me against every common threat or every natural disaster that I personally have responded to or led. No agency can operate alone. Our partnerships are vital to the well-being of our region and the United States. So again, this speech is my commitment to each one of you, to the community, to our partners, that no matter the threat, Border Patrol will be ready to assist at a moment's notice. So again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day.
All right. We have a very special keynote speaker. I want you to think back to September 11, 2001. Where were you? I remember it vividly. I was a radio broadcaster on the air at our studios in Harlingen. And it was about 9 o'clock, and we had a small little black and white monitor. And I looked up, and I saw one of the Twin Towers and the plume of smoke. And I thought to myself, wow, somebody was off on their coordinates. And then you continue watching. You're trying to entertain people, being the wacky FM DJ that you are, but you have to monitor the situation. When they interrupt Rebus and Kathy Lee, that's when something big is going on. And that's when we realized that we were under attack. And we watched the developments of that day all throughout the studio, all throughout the day, trying to keep people abreast of the situation. Our special guest speaker is Joe Torrillo. He is a New York Fire Department lieutenant retired. He's retired on disability and spent the first 15 years of his career in Engine Company Number 10, right across the street from the South Tower of the World Trade Center. On September 11th, Lieutenant Torrillo was on his way to a press conference when American Airlines Flight 11 struck the North Tower. Fearing for his firefighter brothers, he diverted to the scene to render assistance. While he was involved in the rescue operation, the South Tower fell. He was buried alive before being rescued. As he was waiting to be transferred to a boat on the Hudson River, the North Tower fell and buried Joe again, alive. He miraculously survived the collapse of both towers, but sustained lifelong injuries. Today, he travels the world as a professional speaker with a quest to make our country the reunited States of America, resurrecting patriotism, trumpeting the men and women of the armed services, mentoring adolescents, and inspiring audiences of all sizes to embrace change and never give up on their dreams. To give you a visual representation, I ask that you watch the video ahead.
The day of September 11th, 2001 was one of the most beautiful and pristine days that most New Yorkers had ever recalled. It appeared as if Michelangelo himself had chosen the perfect shade of blue from his palette to paint the sky.
103.5 KCU, the beat of New York.
The changing of sunlight.
The birds were chirping in unison as if they were welcoming the warm and bright morning sunshine and bidding farewell to the ending of summer. Then the unimaginable happened.
Oh my God! It appears that there is more and more fire and smoke enveloping the very top of the building.
America was attacked by Islamic extremists in 4 attacks of terrorism in New York, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. As people from around the world were glued to their television sets,
Perhaps
So you have no idea
purposely
right
oh my goodness, there's another one.
Another plane has just
Oh my goodness, there's another one.
seems to be right into the middle of it.
Oh my.
My God, it's right in the middle of the building.
rescuers were racing to the scenes in a desperate effort to save lives. By nightfall on that fateful day, 2,573 innocent Americans would lose their lives in the horrific carnage, and another 403 emergency service workers would sacrifice theirs in what is considered the greatest rescue effort ever undertaken. For the few actual survivors, they all have a compelling story to tell. Tales of irony, both happy and sad, still surround the images and sounds of horror witnessed in every corner of the earth in the days after the attacks. While every story seems to have a legitimate place in history, few can compare to the story of Lieutenant Joe Torrillo, a career firefighter with the New York City Fire Department. Joe's story, one that he has been asked to share around the globe, has been considered the most ironic and interesting story of all. Joe survived the collapse of not just one tower, but both. Buried 2 times in 1 hour under the debris of each tower with massive bodily injury, miraculously he was found and rescued twice. Listen to Joe as he reveals his amazing and heart-wrenching story of survival.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And before I begin, I want to thank Tony Farina for that kind introduction. And I know I'd be remiss before I begin if I didn't thank Ricardo Salinas and all the committee and all the vendors and the exhibitors, but most of all the first responders here and all the ladies and gentlemen that came to join this special day at the All Hazards Conference here in South Texas. It's a real honor for me to be here. We're just going to launch our PowerPoint, so just give me 1 second. That's why you never take an Italian to Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what? As honored and as much as a privilege this is for me to be here today, and I accepted this invitation with a lot of gratitude, but I was very hesitant about coming here. Please don't take it personal, because I'm thinking the last time an Italian from Brooklyn that looks and sounds like me was in McAllen, Texas, walking around in a firefighter's uniform. He was probably in the witness protection program. But you know what? I'm really glad to be here. I was supposed to be in the south of France today on a yacht with Jennifer Lopez. But who cares? I'm in McAllen, Texas at the All Hands Conference. I know we're all happy to be back in person again. For the last 3 years since the COVID-19 pandemic, I was relegated to doing all these Zoom conferences and WebEx, and I'm not a computer guy, so all my conferences were on computer, and something's always going wrong, as you could probably see, and I think I have a lot to do with that. But now that COVID-19 is almost over, up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, I don't know if you heard about it yesterday, there's a brand new pandemic that could be even worse. I'm doing something. It's called the Amish flu. Did you hear about it? You wake up sounding hoarse and then you start feeling a little buggy. Well, on the way in here, some woman was admiring my uniform. She was looking at my name tag. She says, "How do you pronounce that name?" I said, "Torillo." She says, "Is that an Italian name?" As a matter of fact, it is. She wanted to know, how come Italians don't like Jehovah's Witnesses? I didn't know that. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you the truth. We don't like any witnesses. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, yeah. On the way here, I had a lot of connections. It took me about 9 hours connecting flights. I got to the airport extra early, and I was desperate for a cup of coffee. And I was walking through the terminal, and as I'm walking, I see a McDonald's, and to me, it's like an oasis in the desert. That's my favorite coffee, by the way. And I walked into a bunch of people online, and I saw some old man with his wife that had a pocket full of change. He walked up to the counter, and he ordered one Happy Meal. And I was standing behind him, and I took out my credit card. I said, "Sir," I said, "you can have another Happy Meal. I got enough of money. I'll pay for it." And he says, "That's okay. We share everything." And he sat down, and he started eating, and he cut the hamburger in 2 pieces. He made 2 piles of French fries. And again, I was sitting near them. I took out the credit card again. I said, "So listen, if it's a matter of pride, it's okay, nobody knows. I'm going to go buy another Happy Meal." He says, "No, that's okay." He says, "We share everything." I said, "How come your wife isn't eating?" He says, "She's waiting for my teeth." So ladies and gentlemen, this coming September 11th, we'll be commemorating the 22nd anniversary of the recent attack in American soil, where we were attacked 4 times in 3 different locations, twice in New York City within 17 minutes of each other. United Airlines flight 93 was overtaken by the passengers and the flight crew before it struck the Capitol in Washington, D.C. and crashed into a lonely field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And a short while later, American Airlines number 77 struck the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. And there's been so many stories that have been told over the years, stories that have been relayed and told, like me, on documentaries, on TV shows and movies and magazines and so forth. So there's so many stories. If anybody that's in this audience that's 28 years of age or older, you'll know where you were the day when you heard the news about America being attacked. And it was something that was unsettling because we never thought something like this can happen on our soil. But ladies and gentlemen, it did. And we now realize that we are vulnerable, like other countries, to ongoing terrorism. And on September 11th, there were many stories, good ones, bad ones, happy ones, and sad ones. I'm a tour guide at Ground Zero now in my retirement. That's where I spend a lot of my time. I volunteer, I represent the victims and their families in New York City. So when people like you come to New York, I volunteer my time and I take you on a walking tour of Ground Zero. I give you that opportunity to share in the day through the words of somebody like me that was there for the whole incident and survived it. And I started this walking tour program back in 2006 because I wanted you to be able to enjoy that moment through somebody who would tell you the story correctly and respectfully. And now, so many years later, 17 years later, there's about 350 of us that conduct these tours, and every one of us that conducts the tours has a special connection to the day of September 11th in many different ways. Some of us, like me, were first responders. Some of us were survivors, like me. Some of us worked in the towers and got out. Some had loved ones in the towers and didn't make it. Some were members of the clergy. Some were members of first responder groups, volunteer organizations, members of the construction industry that came during the 8 months and 19 days of the rescue and recovery. So we all lead the tour and tell the story from a different perspective, which makes every tour very, very specific and special for those that attend it. Well, there's a woman who started volunteering with me a couple of years ago. I trained her to be a tour guide. Her name is Peggy. Peggy worked on the 104th floor of the North Tower for 18 years. But Peggy lived across the Hudson River that separates Manhattan from New Jersey. And there was a train, it still runs, underneath the Hudson River from New Jersey, and it would terminate at the base of the Twin Towers. People would get off, go up the escalator to the lobby level at the ground floor, and take an elevator to the whatever floor they were going. Each tower had 105 elevators that carried 28,000 people each day. Well, the night before September 11th, which obviously was September 10th, Peggy had gone out shopping in New Jersey, where she lives on the other side of the Hudson River, and she could see the World Trade Center from her apartment window. And Peggy was a single woman. She was a big executive. She was making a lot of money in finance, and she went out shopping, something that I think women just love to do. Am I right or wrong? And the upcoming fall season, Peggy realized she needed some new corporate outfits, and she was buying all these clothes and new blouses and some new bling jewelry. And she happened upon a pair of shoes she had been looking for a long time. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what it was about this pair of shoes that caught her fancy, but she bought this pair of shoes. She tried them on, but they were half a size too small. But like everything and anything, I think we've all done that. I bought a sports jacket that was 4 sizes too big. I figured I'll start working out and I'll fit into it one day. We all do things like that. But Peggy wanted the shoes so bad, she bought them anyway. She got up the next morning at 8 o'clock on September 11, 2001, in her apartment in New Jersey. She put on her new outfit, her new bling, and she put on these new pair of shoes. And she started walking 4 blocks to get her to the train station that would take her underneath the Hudson River and bring her into New York City under the World Trade Center. And as she's walking from her apartment, she's walking and walking. About 3 blocks later, she realizes these shoes really don't fit. They're starting to actually hurt her feet. And Peggy's got to make an impromptu decision. What do I do? Do I continue to work with these ill-fitting pair of shoes, or should I be smart and go back to my apartment and put on another pair of shoes and return these at a later date? And that's exactly what Peggy did. She went back to her apartment and changed her shoes. And in doing that, Peggy missed the last train that made it to the World Trade Center. Peggy would have been on the 104th floor, 11 floors above the point of impact, where nobody survived, but Peggy's alive today because of an ill-fitting pair of shoes. And these stories are told every single day, very ironic stories. Mine is just one of a million surrounding that day, but my story, which I'm going to share with you today, could be the most interesting and ironic story of all. Ladies and gentlemen, back in the 1970s, the test came out for the New York City Fire Department. All my friends in Brooklyn wanted to be firefighters. Some of us wanted to be police officers. And my friends had an extra application. They said, Joe, take the test with us. Afterwards, we'll go out for a couple of beers. I said, give me the application. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was actually the first time that women were going to be allowed to take the exam. There was a lot of controversy over this exam. Everybody wanted the job, and men at the time didn't really believe that the women should be allowed, which was wrong at the time. We now know that, okay? We're a lot more tolerant. But there was a lot of controversy over that written exam. 70,000 young people took that test. Only 3,000 failed, and I was in the top 1,000. All my friends failed the test, and I took the fire department job just to get them angry. I was going to get sworn in, and I was going to resign the next day. And forever and ever, when we got together years down the road, I was going to say I was a firefighter and you weren't. But ladies and gentlemen, on January 10th, 1981, I got sworn into the New York City Fire Department. That day, I was on my way to the New York City Police Academy. I was actually going into the police department, and I wanted to be a cop more than a firefighter because my uncle and his son were detectives in New York City NYPD. And on the way to the police academy, there was a bunch of mail in my mailbox at my mother's house. I took the mail out, I took it inside, and a piece of mail fell on the floor. It said fire department. I thought my mother and father got a summons or a violation. I figured, let me open up the envelope. It says, congratulations, you're going to be sworn into the New York City Fire Department. I said, I don't believe this. I'm going to become a police officer in an hour from now. I picked up the phone and I called with the sergeant, who was my investigator at the police department. He said, hey kid, don't tell me you're going to be late on your first day. I said, Sarge, I got a problem. Well, what's your problem? You shouldn't have a problem. You're going to be a police officer. We don't have problems. I said, I got a letter from the fire department asking me if I want to be sworn in. He said, hey kid, take the fire department. It's a better job. Boom! And he hung up the phone. And that's how it all started. So ladies and gentlemen, after going through the training academy, of all 357 firehouses they could arbitrarily place me to begin my career, there was a new firehouse right across the street from the South Tower of the World Trade Center. It was a brand new firehouse. I was a brand new firefighter assigned to Engine Company 10. And I spent the first 16 years of my career in that little firehouse right there. 16 years protecting the towers, responding to tens of thousands of alarms in that 7-building complex called the World Trade Center. The 2 twin towers were the icons, but there were 5 other buildings that comprised the World Trade Center complex. And this is what we did every single day. And after about 16 years protecting the towers, I was ready to start climbing the ladder, with no pun intended. And I got promoted to lieutenant on September 5th, 1996. And right after getting promoted to lieutenant, I responded to this fire on New Year's Eve. This was a vicious fire. We were the first ones to arrive. And there was a report of a woman trapped on the 2nd floor in the rear of the building. Some of the firefighters were going up to the roof, which is typically what they do. They start cutting the roof open, while the other firefighters, like me, grab the hose line, go inside, and put the flames out and search for the people. And it turned out that that report of a woman on the 2nd floor wasn't even in there. She was down the block having a cup of coffee with her girlfriend. And this is very typical. I had an incident just a couple of months before that. We pulled up to a similar incident. A woman was screaming in the middle of the street, my baby, where's your baby, where's your baby? He's on the 3rd floor in the middle of the apartment. I made a concerted effort. I was actually getting burnt getting in there. I got into the bedroom where she said that the baby was. I swept my hand underneath the bed, because sometimes kids will hide on the beds and in closets, and something bit me. It was a turtle. I didn't find no children. Now I'm getting really nervous. Maybe the child went into the bathroom, went to another room. I made a concerted effort. Everybody was getting burnt. It was hot and smoky. I finally went outside. The search was over, and she started screaming, oh my God, you found my baby. I said, this is your baby? She says, well, it's a pet, isn't it? I said, I understand that. What'd you tell me it's a baby for? I said, do me a favor, lady. If this happens again, take your turtle, put it in your pocket, and run out of the building. So after the fire was out, they rushed me to the hospital. At that fire, firefighters were cutting holes in the roof, and a glass skylight came down and went through my hand and almost took my thumb off of my hand. And while I was recuperating from this injury, they made me take a desk job working in headquarters. I never worked in an office in my life. I didn't even know how to turn the computer on. I was out of work for about a year because my left thumb was just about cut off from my hand at that fire. And I showed up at headquarters to take what's called a light duty job while I was convalescing from this injury. And when I got to headquarters, there were various assignments that needed to be filled. And they asked me, would I be willing to work in their Office of Fire Safety Education? I didn't know we had an Office of Fire Safety Education. I had no idea who they were or what they did. In essence, it was a group of firefighters like me who were recuperating from various injuries and illnesses because we couldn't be active in a firehouse. They would send us out to one of the 3,000 schools in New York City to go into the classrooms and talk to the kids about preventing and surviving fires. So I said to the gentleman who was running the program, I said, look, I don't belong here. He said, why? I said, I'm not a public speaker. I says, I'm not a teacher by trade. I don't have any college credits in education. He says, don't worry about it. He says, none of us belong here. We all just got here. No pressure. Everything's okay. And I started going out to the schools in New York City. I never got up in front of a group of people like today. But it was you know what, ladies and gentlemen, life has a way of taking us down roads that are meant for us and changes us in so many different ways. In this new position in the Fire Safety Education Program, I got so good at it, they named me the director of the program. And you know what? Life has a funny way of bringing you to places that you didn't know were waiting for you. And as the new director of the Fire Department's Public Education Program, we were on a mission to lower fires and fatalities, basically by going out into the public and getting up in front of people and teaching them how to recognize hazards in their home, what steps they can take to prevent those hazards, and for hazards and fires that weren't prevented, how might we teach them the skills on how they could survive. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I've always been a very creative kid. Ever since I was maybe 8 years old, I used to like to build things. I'm a self-taught carpenter, plumber, electrician by trade, but I wasn't a public speaker. But I took over the public education program, and I started thinking about the educational process as a whole, and I realized that kids like having fun when they learn. I like having fun when I learn. So I sold the idea to Mayor Giuliani. We should have a learning center where kids can go on a school trip and learn about the messages of prevention and survival on a very Disney quality Broadway type of show. And Mayor Giuliani loved the idea because Mayor Giuliani liked anything that made him look good. But he gave me a $3 million budget. And ladies and gentlemen, there's an old saying that goes just like this. Be careful what you wish for because you might get what you want. I had no idea what I was doing. I sold this great grandiose idea to the mayor and the city council, and the owner of Rockefeller Center, Jerry Spire, who's Donald Trump times 10 in real estate money, he was a close friend to the firefighters. When he found out what I wanted to do, he called me up. He says, Joe, he says, I know you're looking for a place to build your new learning center. Why don't you build it right here in Rockefeller Center? I said, Jerry, we don't have that kind of money. That the budget it would be way too huge for us. He said, yes, you do. He says, I'm going to give you a piece of property next to Radio City Music Hall in the heart of New York City. I'm going to give it to you for 10 years for $1. And I said, Jerry, if you triple my rent in 10 years, I'll still call you my friend. And ladies and gentlemen, sometimes, you know what, when you get a gift like that, the pressure makes it even worse because now I had to turn over something that was going to be spectacular. And I came up with this concept. I took the 5 most common causes of fire where people die and lose their lives and get injured, and I brought them to life in a Broadway type of show in a Disney quality environment in a venue called the Fire Zone. It was a very spectacular program. Kids can come and they can try on firefighting clothing. They can see all the tools and equipment. They could also get on the fire engine, talk to the dispatcher, put the lights on. They could actually blast the siren. They could actually pump water. The kids loved it. And then we would take them into a show where they would meet 5 people who had fires and how did they escape those fires, the common theme being a properly operating installed smoke detector. And this was big news in New York City. I worked on that project for 2 years. We opened the fire zone in 2000. I worked on it for 2 straight years. I wasn't even getting paid for the amount of time I put into that project. But my reputation was on the line, the mayor's reputation, Jerry Spire, Rockefeller Center. And it turned out to be a really great venue. And a month later, in November of 2000, we got a call. We're being nominated for an Emmy Award, and I won an Emmy Award for the Fire Zone Learning Center in New York City. I don't know where somebody like me wins this kind of award, but I was in Los Angeles with all these Hollywood stars. I was walking the red carpet, throwing it up for everybody. And right after that, I was spending all my time, after we won that prestigious award, I was spending all of my time promoting the Learning Center. In October, we opened. In November, we won the Emmy Award. And then 2 months, 3 months later, in January of 2001, we were into a new year. The pressure was off. I was getting all these accolades. I was winning all these awards. And I got a phone call on January 4th of 2001. I was in my office in headquarters at 9 o'clock, just got to work. I sat down, had a cup of coffee and a cinnamon raisin bagel when the phone rings. Dring, dring. Fire Department headquarters, Lieutenant Cirillo. Hey, good morning, how are you? This is the Fisher-Price Corporation. You got the wrong number. I just told you it's Fire Department headquarters. Sorry. No, we ain't got the wrong number. We want to speak to Lieutenant Cirillo. Okay, that's me. How can I help you? Are you familiar with the Fisher-Price Corporation? I think it's a household name in this country. They know more specifically want to tell you about something you might be interested in. Okay, what's that? You have some time to speak? It's
9 o'clock and I work till 6 o'clock and you speak for 9 hours, shoot, give it to me, what do you got? They said, are you familiar with our little action figures we call rescue heroes that kids love? I got 4 children, but I don't know anything about these action figures. Well, let's explain it to you. We have these little action figures called rescue heroes that kids absolutely love. We have a little police officer called Jake Justice. We have his, this is sensitive. We have his partner, Sergeant Siren, his boss, Captain Cuffs. We have an ambulance attendant called Perry Medic. We have a lifeguard called Sandy Beach. We have a construction worker called Jack Hammer. We have a mountain rescue specialist by the name of Cliff Hanger and his partner Rocky Canyon. We also have a medevac pilot called Hallie Copter. We have a scuba diver called Gil Gripper. We have an astronaut called Roger Houston. We have a ski patroller by the name of Alpine. And we have a female firefighter called Wendy Waters. They said, but we want a New York City firefighter to be our new rescue hero. We're going to call him Billy Blazes, but we want you to help us design it. And if you do, we'll give you $1 for everyone sold around the world. And that money wasn't going to go in my pocket, it was going to go in my education program. And I'd use that kind of funding to buy smoke detectors to give them out free in New York City to people like you who will listen to me for an hour on how to both prevent and survive a fire. It's a way of drawing people into the audience, especially in New York when you give them something. In New York, if it's free, it's for me. And if you're a firefighter or a police officer, if it's free, you think I could have 3? So I set up a meeting in January of 2001 with the Fisher-Price Corporation. They brought their artist illustrators and toy designs down to my office and headquarters, and for a whole day, as I'm speaking about what a firefighter looks like with his firefighting clothing, his tools and equipment, the artists had art pads on easels with crayons and markers in their drawing, and at the end of the day, they have a firefighter fully sketched out, and they took the artwork and they went to the factory. From January 2001 until July of 2001, it was a 6-month process. They made the first mold and prototype. And they called us up for a meeting. They wanted us to look it over before we went into mass production, so I set up another meeting in the first week of July of 2001. They came down and they had the mold and prototype. Billy Blazes, a New York City firefighter. We looked it over and there were certain things that we thought they should kind of change and tweak a little bit. We don't have blue firefighting clothing. There's a lot of different things that I think they miscalculated. So one of the Fisher-Price executives said to me, Joe, tell me something that's signature about a New York City firefighter. I said, well, there's things I can tell you and things I can't tell you because there's women in the room. I said, well, sometimes we're unshaven, we got big mustaches, and we also smoke cigars. And she says, well, we're not going to put a cigar in Billy Blazes' hand. So she took out a big black Sharpie, and she said he needs to look more like you. And she drew the big mustache on Billy Blazes. They went back to the factory, and they remolded Billy Blazes with the changes, including the big mustache. And 3 weeks later, they called us up for another meeting. They came down, they showed us the new Billy Blazes, and that's him right there. He was made in my likeness. Fisher-Price Billy Blazes. He's here today to meet you. So the Fisher-Price executives were really excited. They wanted to get him into mass production. This was the end of July 2001. They says, we want to have a press conference. Where can we have a press conference? I said, let's do it at the Fire Zone. They said, what's that? I said, it's a new children's learning center I designed last year. We opened and we won an Emmy Award. They said, oh my God, where is it? It's in the heart of Rockefeller Center. They said, can we really do it there? I said, of course, I'm the director. They says, okay, we know where we're going to do the press conference, but when? Well, this meeting was the end of July of 2001. I said, let's do it in October. They said, why October? I said, October's Fire Prevention Month. It's the longest running health initiative in the world, which is a fact. It goes back to 1871 after they rebuilt Chicago. Supposedly, Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over a lantern in a barn. Anybody remember that story? The story's never been proven because I'm going to tell you right now, if I burnt down half of McAllen tonight and the cops showed up, what are I'm going to say? Officer, I swear to God, you see the cow across the street? She had the gasoline and matches. I saw the whole thing. So the cow got blamed for the big Chicago fire. But every October since 1871, we captured that month to heighten the awareness of preventing and surviving fires. And they thought that was very apropos to this project with Billy Blazes, but it was too close to Christmas and the holiday season. They wanted to get Billy Blaze on the mark a little bit sooner. October was too distant. This was the end of July of 2001, and I was kind of brainstorming in the meeting. And I said, 911 is the emergency phone number in New York City. Why don't we, for the first time, have a 911-themed safety day? We could talk about preventing and surviving fires, and then we can introduce the new children's rescue hero, Billy Blazes. They says, wow, that is such a great idea. So, ladies and gentlemen, on 911, September 11, 2001, at 9 o'clock in the morning, the date that I chose to introduce Billy Blazes would turn out like nobody would ever imagine. I remember that day so clearly. I got to my office early that morning, and the sky was a perfect color blue. The birds were welcoming the beautiful morning sunshine, and they were bidding farewell to the ending of summer. The little Greek church across the street from the South Tower was tolling their bells. And it was the first day of school in New York City, and we were also voting in the primary for the mayor of New York City. I got to my office in headquarters about 6:30 that morning. I wanted to catch up on voicemails and emails, scheduling, payrolling, because I had to be at the press conference at 9 o'clock a couple hours later. And as I'm sitting in my office, there was a report of a plane coming down low over Manhattan, heading towards the Twin Towers. Well, I didn't think much of it. And then somebody said the plane just struck the North Tower. This is a little sensitive, boy. Somebody said the plane hit the World Trade Center. My office next to where I was in headquarters, my boss was on the TV, and this is what we see. We see smoke coming out of the North Tower, and I said to my boss, is this a movie? Is this a hoax? I just heard a rumor. He said, no, this actually just happened. The initial image of the TV in headquarters at 8:46 a.m. And I knew that I better get into Manhattan, and I didn't know what to think. I didn't know how serious this was. I got in my vehicle, and I zoomed out of headquarters, and I was on the Brooklyn Bridge 2 blocks away heading into Manhattan, thinking I'm going to the press conference because I really don't understand the severity of this. I'm thinking maybe a little Piper Cub, a little pilot who just got his solo license, and maybe he got too close to the towers. I'm not thinking it's really that big of a deal. I'm just rushing into Manhattan so that I don't get stuck in traffic. And as I'm going over the bridge, I'm looking to the left, and this is what I see on the Manhattan side. On the North Tower, I see about 10 to 12 floors of fire, and I realize this has to be more than a little Piper Cub. This must have been a jet, but it doesn't make sense because jets don't fly in that direction. They fly in the opposite direction on their approach to the landing tarmac of LaGuardia Airport in Queens, New York. And I see about 10 floors of fire completely engulfed in black smoke and flames. And I'm thinking about the media. I'm thinking about the press conference. A million things are going through my head. And I got so many things that I have to think about. And I'm thinking about my friends in the original firehouse across the street from the South Tower. I'm thinking about Billy Blazes. I'm thinking about the press conference. I'm thinking about my firefighters across the street that I started my career. And I'm thinking, what's it going to be? Am I going to go to my firehouse and spring into action, or do I go to the press conference for Billy Blazes? And I said, the heck with Billy Blazes and the press conference. This ain't happening today. I rushed to my firehouse where I started my career. I got there exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. I parked my car in the back of the firehouse on the sidewalk because I remember from the bombing in 1993, there were so many vehicles blocking each other, we couldn't get ambulances to hospitals to treat the people that were stuck in the towers on February 26, 1993. So I parked my car in the back of the firehouse, and I ran around to the front of the firehouse, and both of the doors were wide open. And although the doors of the firehouse were open, I really couldn't get in because people like you were laying all over the floor of the firehouse. The fire engines had already responded to the North Tower. The doors were left open. People got hit with jet fuel, pieces of the building. They were running, saw a firehouse with the doors open, and just ran in as a haven of safety. They were stumbling and jumping on top of each other. There was like a pile of human pickup sticks. And I looked, and nobody was in critical condition. Some were burnt, some were crying, some were screaming, some were in shock. And I looked around, and nobody was in critical condition. I told them, just stay in the firehouse until we get ambulances. I took off my dress uniform, and I borrowed a helmet, boots, gloves, jacket, and firefighting pants from another firefighter who was off duty by the name of Tommy McNamara. He was at home. I took all of his firefighting equipment, took off my uniform, and I ran out of the firehouse, and I was running to the North Tower, which is the one that was struck on the right-hand side with the TV antenna. And as I was running, I had to pass the South Tower first. And as I was running past the South Tower to get to the North Tower, I heard a roar, and I looked up, and the second jet came right over my head. United Airlines Flight 175 struck the South Tower 17 minutes later between the 77th and the 85th floor. I was right underneath that jet. It hit the building, and it just disappeared like a magic act. And that big, huge fireball came down right at me. I was right underneath it, and luckily I turned. I made it back into the firehouse 40 feet away, and that huge fireball would have killed me right there. It exploded on the ground, and New Yorkers on the way to work were looking up in disbelief. And now I know, ladies and gentlemen, it's a terrorist attack. We can't have two buildings hit by two planes within 17 minutes. The odds and the circumstances surrounding that dictated right away that this was another terrorist attack after February of 1993. We were told they were going to come back again and do it once again. So I knew right away it was a terrorist attack. And I realized that those trapped above, they have no way of getting below the fire, and we have no way of getting to them. And then at that point, ladies and gentlemen, people started jumping out of the building. They were coming down one by one, hugging each other, tumble salting. And my next assessment, I said, the buildings are going to collapse. And people said, what? I said, the buildings are going to collapse. They said, what, are you kidding me? How could you say something like that? I said, these buildings are going to collapse. And people says, why? How do you know that? Nobody knew I went to school. I went to college for structural engineering and architecture. That's what I was supposed to do with my life. Before I was a firefighter, my true passion was the construction industry. When I was in engineering school, two of my professors, Louis Vadioli and George Bory, were working for the concrete contractor on the Twin Towers. And they would take us there on a class trip as new engineering students to study the Twin Towers when they were going up. It was a new, radical, lightweight design, very different from the Empire State Building. And I graduated engineering school, and I always remember those days I was there as a new engineering student. I wasn't really a Michael Jackson impersonator. I was an engineering student. And ladies and gentlemen, just like Minoru Yamasaki, who was a Japanese-American who actually designed the Twin Towers, this is what we used to do in school. We used to design buildings and build models and test them. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I said to myself, why did I spend all this time in engineering school and architecture school when I didn't do anything with the degree? Why did I stay up all night reading these hideous textbooks? Does anybody here write textbooks? If you do, I'd like to have you arrested right now. I would stay up all night crunching calculations, drawing blueprints. And I said to myself, when I got assigned to that firehouse right across the street, because I'm back as a fireman protecting them and no longer an engineering student studying them, why did I waste my time in engineering school? But ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you what, education is never ever wasted. You never know what's going to come back and benefit you. And it benefited me so many years later that gave me the ability to make the assessment that those towers were going to collapse and nobody would listen or believe me. And still till today, I get invited all around the world to do this presentation on the collapse of the towers, what really happened. And I'm doing the testimony at the trial in Guantanamo, Cuba. I'm in the middle of the biggest trial in history. Right now, I'll be flying back to Guantanamo to go back into the trial against the 5 terrorists who attacked us. And I'll be talking about the design, the collapse of the Twin Towers, and what I feel they tried to do when they hit the buildings. They thought they were going to knock them over, but they didn't knock them over. And so I think that my biggest fear was that we were going to lose the ambulance crews, the EMTs and paramedics. Everybody talks about the incident at the World Trade Center as the biggest firefighting incident in history. That's nonsense. We didn't get one drop of water on the fire. This was not a firefighting incident. This was the biggest EMS incident in the history of the world. And I didn't want to lose the EMTs and paramedics because I knew they were going to be the ones we would need most at the end of the day. They were setting up their triage in the lobby of both towers, and I told them they had to get out. And they said, why? I said, the towers are going to collapse. They said, excuse the expression, who the hell are you? We don't work for you. You got no authority. And I didn't have any authority. I just gave it to myself. I said, no, you got to get out of get in your ambulances and go about 6 blocks away and stage your ambulances up against the curb. We'll call you one crew at a time as we need you. And at that point, more ambulances are rushing to the scene. And this last group of EMTs and paramedics says, you can go to hell. We're not leaving. We're treating people. I said, no, you don't understand. You got to get out of the lobby now. These towers are going to collapse. And it was turned into a physical altercation. And ladies and gentlemen, they agreed that they would go and meet the other ambulances at the staging area. And as I was outside the South Tower, I watched that ambulance crew drive away. I was right underneath the South Tower, and I heard a loud rumble and a roar, and I looked up, and here comes the building. And I said to myself, you idiot, you're the one who knew the building was going to collapse, and you put yourself right underneath it. And there was a footbridge that went over the main thoroughfare about a football field away, and I thought if I went fast enough, I could make it underneath that footbridge, and maybe they would find and identify my body. And as I'm running, the building's coming down quicker and quicker. We call it pancake type of collapse. One floor hitting the floor below 110 times. The building's 110 stories. As each floor is hitting the floor below, boom, 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 it's puffing air out like a fireplace bellows. And as I'm running, I can feel the air pressure on the back of my neck as each floor hitting the floor below. Poof, 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 poof. And the air pressure was getting stronger and stronger. The air pressure took my helmet off my head. My helmet was flying through the air. My helmet was flying faster than I was running. I was watching it. It was almost making a U-turn like a boomerang. And I said to myself, this helmet lands back on my head and I live to see tomorrow, I'm going to play the lotto for the rest of my life. And then all around, ladies and gentlemen, as that debris was coming down, people all around the perimeter were getting hit with all the building parts, the glass, the aluminum. They were running on the east side. They were running over bridges going into Brooklyn. This is the scene of that big dust cloud chasing the people. The mayor and I got the mayor and the governor to evacuate. They luckily listened to my direction. They would have been killed. I got them, convinced them that these buildings are going to collapse. And underneath that huge, huge dust cloud, I was buried. As I was running, the air pressure was so strong. After I took my helmet off my head, there was like a tornado gust, 200 miles an hour. The air pressure lifted me off my feet, and I was flying through the air. I never made it to the footbridge. A piece of steel from the North Tower hit me in the back and split the back of my head wide open. Huge slabs of concrete were just hitting my body. The back of my head is split open. I got a fractured skull. All my ribs are broken. My neck and spine is crushed. My left arm is broken in half, and I'm bleeding internally, and I'm buried. As all these people are trying to run away, I was buried with a bunch of people underneath this big dust cloud. There was no more air. I was suffocating to death, and there was no more light in the darkness. And all around me in the darkness, there were a bunch of people screaming at the top of their lungs. We were all pinned under tons of steel and concrete. All around me, the people were screaming and crying. Cry turns into whimpers, whimpers into silence. One by one, they had all died, and I was still alive. And just a short while left, I was in the middle of all these fires. And ladies and gentlemen, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I went to 12 years of very strict Catholic schooling, and after getting out of Catholic boys' high school, I got away from religion. I was always a Christian, but I never was involved in orchestrated Catholic religion. I didn't really understand religion in the way I thought I should understand it. I wasn't feeling it. I was angry, I was confused, I was depressed. Why didn't I feel what I was supposed to feel after 12 years of strict Catholic education? And I kind of got away from religion, but I was always still a Christian in my heart. And I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I actually said a prayer before I was dying. And I thank God for my career. I said, God, I don't want to die angry. Just take care of my family when they hear the news. I accept what's happening to me today. I just can't believe that it's all ending when it all started off as such a beautiful morning. And I had a flashback to the day of January 10th, 1981, when I was sworn into the fire department. And I remember, as I was sworn in, I was standing in front of the mayor and the fire commissioner, and on that day of January 10th, 1981, we all had our right hand in the air, taking the oath of office, saying that we would be willing to give up our life so that somebody else might live on becoming a new fireman in New York City. And as I was taking the last breaths of my life, all I kept on saying, you never ever thought you'd live up to that vow, and today you're living up to it. I just said, God, take care of my family because they're not going to accept the news. And then I said to myself, why did I choose this career? Why did I choose this career? I was supposed to be a police officer. I was supposed to be working for a big construction company. Why did I choose this career that was taking my life from me? That was the biggest mistake of my life. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do this all over again. It wasn't a mistake. It was my way of serving you, the public. And if it took my life, then you know what? I would have died a hero. But I'm not a hero. I just get to tell the story today. This is what I was supposed to do with my life. I was supposed to be a construction superintendent. I was supposed to build high-rise buildings. But I took the fire department job, and now it's taken my life away. And then the night before September 11th, which was September 10th on a Monday evening, I was out doing a fire safety presentation in Manhattan. I got home about 9 o'clock that night on the night before September 11th, and my wife let my 4 kids stay up late. Normally they would have been in bed. And as soon as I got home, they were standing at the front door. They opened up the door, they grabbed my jacket, and they dragged me over to the couch. They took off my jacket, they grabbed my briefcase, they jumped on top of me all four, and they made me fall on the couch. They said, Daddy, you're not moving. You're not getting off this couch until you tell us when you're taking us to Disney World. You keep telling us for the last 2 years we're going to Disney World. You keep breaking the promise. And I said to myself, That's all those 4 kids have asked me for. My kids never asked me for anything. They kept asking me for the last 2 years as I worked on the fire zone and the Billy Blazers project. I kept telling them, yeah, we're going to go to Disney World next month. No, maybe in the summer. No, maybe for Christmas vacation. Maybe for spring break. And I kept breaking the promise. And I kept on saying to myself, there's going to be a new man that comes into my wife's life after they bury me, if they find me. And there's going to be a new daddy that's going to get that on and take them to Disney World. All I kept on saying, why did I not take them? That's all they ever asked of me. I said, God, please take me quick. I can't take this pain anymore. And then I had an image of 3 of my other siblings, me and my twin sister. She survived polio in 1960. The doctor said she wouldn't live through the night, and she's alive today with 2 beautiful daughters, married to a great husband. And she's going to have a nervous breakdown when she hears the news. And ladies and gentlemen, then they found the void. They found the void, and they saw my hand, and they started digging, and they found 4 of us. First, they found my friend Al Fuentes, a captain. They found my other friend Scott, and then they found me. They picked me up, and they put me on a spine board, and they were running, and they put me on the deck of a boat on the Hudson River across the street from the World Trade Center. And on the deck of the boat, they held my head closed, and I heard them saying I was going to die if I couldn't get to a hospital. I knew I wasn't going to make it. They were holding my head closed. I was losing way too much blood, and I was screaming in pain. I told them to please go. I'm not going to make it. Just get out of New York. They said, no, we're not going to leave you. There was another loud rumble and a roar, and everybody on the boat started screaming, oh, my God, here comes the North Tower. Now the North Tower started collapsing, flew across the street to the Hudson River, falling on top of the boat. Everybody jumped overboard. They were being hit with glass and pieces of metal. They jumped into the Hudson River overboard from the boat, and I broke free from the stretcher, and I stuck my hand down, and I felt a doorway. And I rolled into the doorway, but I ended up diving headfirst 10 feet below into the engine room. Now the North Tower buried the boat on the river, and I'm buried a second time, and I'm suffocating all over again. I was saying to myself, I just can't believe this. How could this possibly be happening? And they ran and they put me on a boat, and about an hour later, people came back to the boat to start the engines, and they found me in the engine room, and he made a loud command to the deck above. He says, Captain, you got to get down. There's a fireman down here. This guy's in bad shape. He ain't going to make it. The captain came down, shined the flashlight, says, oh, my God. He didn't say, oh, my God. He said something else I'm not going to say it in public. Holy sugar, honey, and iced tea. You know what it is, right? That's what he really said. But anyway, he says, get this boat out of here. And the boat skipped across the river, and paramedics were waiting on the New Jersey side. They came into the engine room of the boat, and with a long spine board, they got me out again. And then sometime later, in the afternoon, I woke up. I was in an operating room. I didn't know where I was. Doctors and nurses were all around me, cutting my clothes off me, stark naked. And you know what? On the inside of our firefighting code, we write our name. It said Tommy McNamara. So for 3 days, I was admitted as Tommy McNamara. And then, ladies and gentlemen, nobody knew where I was. That night, they found my car on the sidewalk, fire safety education. And the firefighters in my firehouse called my house about 1 o'clock in the morning to say that I hadn't made it. We found the car, but he's gone. And ladies and gentlemen, the next morning, when the sun cleared and the dust cloud went away, people realized that Batman and Robin's not real. Superman's not real. Spider-Man's not real. The only children's rescue hero who ever came to life was Billy Blazers on the morning of September 11th, the day I chose to introduce him, and he would march 343 firefighters up to heaven together to be known as heroes, and he left me behind to tell this story on the day a rescue hero would actually come to life. And when I got out of the hospital, I started going to all the funerals for all the firefighters, 343 firefighters. The funerals were going on all year long. And I hated going to funerals. Had a very bad experience when I was 7 years old. My father said, we're going to see Aunt Mary. We pull up in front of a new building. I said, this isn't Aunt Mary's house. She says, yeah, we're going to go, and she's inside. It was a funeral home. And my Aunt Mary was laying in a casket. I didn't know which. I said, how come she's not talking? How come she's not moving? I didn't understand it. They didn't know how to tell me that my favorite Aunt Mary had died. The first time I saw a body in the casket. And the following morning, the pallbearers took the casket to the local Catholic church for a Catholic ceremony. And I was with my uncle and all my relatives, and they wheeled the casket down to the front of the church. The priest blessed the casket. They reversed the casket and wheeled it back to the front of the church. And when they got to the front of the church, they bumped the casket into a wall. They heard moaning and groaning and screaming inside the casket. They opened up the casket. My aunt was still alive. and it kind of totally freaked me out, and I would never want to go into a funeral home again. Aunt Mary lived for another 10 years and died again. Ladies and gentlemen, I know it's a crazy story, but it was the same funeral home, the same pallbearers, the same priest, and the same Catholic church. This time I'm 17, and I'm walking with my uncle, her husband, behind the casket to the altar. And then after the ceremony was over, they reversed the casket, and I'm holding my uncle up. He's a little bit more frail, and at this point, 10 years later. And as we're walking the casket to the front of the church, he started screaming out, "Don't hit the wall!" So, ladies and gentlemen, I won all these very prestigious awards from Mayor Giuliani. I was honored at the governor's mansion, at the State of the State address by New York Governor Pataki. And I also got to meet the new incoming mayor, Ron Bloomberg, and the new fire commissioner, Nicholas Capetta. Ron Bloomberg actually is one of the billionaires of the United States. He ran for president recently against Joe Biden, and he lost. And then as a Yankee fan, I got the prestigious honor of throwing out the first pitch on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 to my favorite player, Derek Jeter. And I got to work very closely. In April 2002, I got a call from Donald Trump's office in April 2002 asking me would I be willing to help him raise money for children with pediatric AIDS. I don't care whether you like him or you dislike him. I can tell you one thing. I witnessed Donald Trump do things that nobody else would do. He's raised so much money. I'm not here to promote him. I'm just not about a political statement. But I got to work very closely with him. They put us on the cover of People magazine. And then 3 years later, as I was recuperating from my injuries on 9/11 in 2004, I got a letter in the mail, registered from the fire department, stating, "Your career is over. We're going to retire you on disability." I opened up that letter and I broke down. I cried. I ended up falling into a corner. I just didn't know what to do. I had the letter in my hand. What do I do? Where do I go from here? I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I lost my identity. I lost my friends. I lost my firehouse. I lost my health. My whole life was turned upside down. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, right after September 11th, there was a big resurrection in patriotism. A short while later, we were all watching patriotism fly away. And I wanted to bring patriotism back again. So I started off on this mission. This is very sensitive, I'm sorry. I wanted to bring patriotism back again, and I took this I want to make our country the reunited States of America. That was my new mission. I had to have a mission, I had to have a purpose. I want to bring people together. Ladies and gentlemen, I realized that we were a fractured country. I just want to say a couple of things. I want to make this out there, take it for what it's worth. The United States is the youngest country in the world, but yet we set the standard for all other countries to measure themselves up against. This is a country that opens up its arms to people we owe nothing to, and we give them an opportunity to come and share in their life. People we owe nothing to, we ask nothing in return. But there's a lot of issues going on in this country. We're all aware of that. I don't need to go into it. I want to bring people together. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you one thing. America, as the youngest country in the world, has made a lot of mistakes. Mistakes are made in the growing process of anything and anybody. There was a time where you understand that black people couldn't ride on the front of the bus, women couldn't serve in the military, and people of the same sex could not marry each other. But we're over that. Yeah, it was mistakes. You know what? We can't change history, but I think we tried so hard to correct the mistakes of the past, and I think, quote unquote, we're there now. Why do people keep on indicting America for past crimes when she already paid her dues and did her sentence? And you know what, ladies and gentlemen, I stand here today. Somewhere out there in the United States of America, there's handfuls of people that were born here and don't believe that they live in the greatest country in the world. And I got a little message for those people. There's 19,200 airports in the United States of America. There's 197 other countries around the globe. Anybody, and there's nobody in this room, I'm sure, and if you're not happy living here, you have no problem finding a flight taking you to another country where you think you're going to find it better. And if you're stupid enough to take me up on the offer, you'd be smart enough to book that trip with a round-trip ticket, because as soon as you leave, you'll be right back here again. As I stand here today, ladies and gentlemen, when we go back to our founding father and first president, George Washington, 1,343,812 men and women took up arms and fought in every branch of every service in the military, fought in every battle of every war so that you and I can have a life that nobody else can have in other countries. And we give them that opportunity. So we owe no excuse to any other nation, any other group of people to say that we're proud to be an American because of people like you who committed to yourself in all different ways as first responders in the military or any other way as teachers, nurses, and doctors to make this country the shining star of the planet Earth. And I thank all of you for that. So I took this huge American flag. It was given to me by a group of businessmen in California. I called the Patriot flag. And on the 10th anniversary, I planned on flying that flag at the World Trade Center in the morning, in Shanksville, Pennsylvania in the afternoon, and also at the Pentagon in the evening. And I got this huge American flag, and on the 10th anniversary, me and my friends were able to take the flag, and we were able to fly into 3 locations. It was called the Patriot flag. It's in honor of every man and woman who ever served our nation in the military, in memory of all the victims of 9/11, and it pays all of the honor to the first responders of the United States of America. It's called the Patriot flag, and I flew that flag in 275 cities. I took that flag all over the United States. I flew in 50 states in 50 weeks just to resurrect patriotism with no politics surrounding it. I flew it at North Pole on Christmas Eve in minus 20-degree weather. I hung it on Betsy Ross's house in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where she stitched the very first American flag. And I also flew it on the anniversary in the place where Francis Scott Key in Baltimore, Maryland, where he wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. And I was given the rare opportunity on September 13th, 2 days after the 10th anniversary, to fly it at the tomb of the unknown soldier and be the keynote speaker. And ladies and gentlemen, I needed to show my love and support and respect for the members of the military, because I was the last group of kids in 1973 to have to file for the draft for the Vietnam War, and the war was over shortly thereafter. I never had the force or the impetus to go into the military. I made a life as a firefighter. But I was going down to Walter Reed Medical Center, as I said before, visiting the soldiers. Here's U.S. Army Ranger Brendan Morocco, came back from Afghanistan missing both arms and both legs and one of his eyes. You can see on his left shoulder he's got a rubber arm. Brendan Morocco's girlfriend came down from New York City with an engagement ring. She laid the engagement ring when he got back stateside from Afghanistan at Walter Reed Medical Center. This is the Malone House of Walter Reed. It's like the Ronald McDonald House of Walter Reed Medical Center. We were having a Super Bowl party for them, and we have a barbecue. All the firefighters from New York City do this as a tribute to them. And Brendan Morocco's girlfriend had an engagement ring, put it on his chest. She didn't have a finger to put it on. She said, "Brendan, will you still marry me?" And he said, yes. They got engaged that night. Brendan Morocco, 2 years ago, was fitted with a double human arm transplant, 2 prosthesis legs, and a glass eye. When he got out, he got on a plane and went back to Afghanistan to be with his unit again. So when you talk about bravery, you talk about that kid, don't talk about me. And then me and my friends, I got a friend in San Diego. We started a 9/11 traveling memorial called the World Memorial. You can see the artifacts that we developed, and we take it all around the United States, and people come to visit me. As I set up this display, it's for free. We take it all over to state fairs, and it gives people an opportunity to come and talk to me and let me give them a first-hand story of the event of 9/11 and how I survived it. And then, ladies and gentlemen, I got a call from the Pentagon. They asked me if I would come down to Washington, D.C. They didn't go into details, and I figured when you get a call from the Pentagon, from the Joint Chiefs of Staff office, you go down there. And the Hispanic Medal of Honor Society bestowed upon me the Medal of Valor for what I did on September 11th. I didn't want to accept this Medal of Valor from the Hispanic Congressional Medal of Honor recipients because I felt 343 firefighters were carried to their graves. I'm alive. I shouldn't be bestowed this valor, but they insisted on it. So they gave me the Medal of Valor at the Pentagon, and then they asked me afterwards, about an hour, we had lunch, and they asked me to come into the Joint Chiefs of Staff office to meet with some really very important, powerful people. And I went into the office, and they said, "Joe, we need a favor." "Well, what do you need?" They says, "We want you to represent the United States at the trial in Guantanamo, Cuba, against the 5 terrorists who attacked us." Ladies and gentlemen, I'm in the middle of the trial right now. And I asked Ed Ryan, the lead prosecutor, I told him all about the Patriot flag. He said, "Joe, that's amazing. I never heard about that." I said, "Ed, can I take the Patriot flag on its last mission and hang it on the courthouse outside Guantanamo, Cuba, where the 5 terrorists are on trial?" He said, "Joe, if you don't take that flag, I'm not taking you." And that was music to my ears. I took the Patriot flag on its last mission before I retired it, and I hung it outside the courthouse, and I told all 5 terrorists to look at that flag outside. That flag is the most noted symbol of liberty, freedom, and justice for people not only in our country, but people all over the world know what that flag represents. On that flag of 13 red and white stripes, there's also a blue field with 50 white stars. We all know each star represents one of the states of this great nation. I told the terrorists they should look out the window at that flag. The size of it doesn't make it any more important than the little one on my lapel. I said, but you should have looked at that flag a little more closely. On that blue field of 50 white stars, those stars were arranged in 9 rows and 11 columns, symbolizing the day you made the biggest mistake challenging this country and the integrity of its people. This is an artist sketch of me in Guantanamo, Cuba, and in the proceedings, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, he's Osama bin Laden's right-hand man. He planned the whole attack, but he didn't carry it out. We call him KSM. And he asked, through his interpreter, to the judge that's heading up the trial, he said, why are you wasting your time with this trial when you know that we did it? In the courtroom, he said this to his interpreter. He said, we just wish we could have killed more Americans. We hate all of you. We're Mods, and we want to be put to death. And there are days when I'm in the trial, they're listening to the testimony. He decides he's not going to come to the courtroom. He doesn't care about being there. And at 12 o'clock every single day, they give them all a piece of carpet to come outside and pray to interrupt the proceedings. MSNBC came down with me to interview me at the courthouse, what it was like for me to be in the courtroom. I said it's a bittersweet experience, bitter in the fact that I get this unfortunate opportunity to put faces on true hate and evil, but sweet in knowing that our country is willing to give the best of justice to the worst of human beings. They says, okay, what's it like being here? I said, well, I'm not a lawyer by trade. I don't have any background in criminal proceedings, but I find it unnerving to think that our criminal attorneys that are members of the military, we call JAGs, our military lawyers are actually defending them. And our military attorneys are actually the prosecutors. It just didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand military tribunals. And they said, well, how would you like to sum that up? And I said, I'm not normally at a loss for words. I said, but that's like my wife buying a dress for my girlfriend so I could take her to a Broadway show. They said, oh, that's very well said. And ladies and gentlemen, as I was speaking, everybody back home in the United States was hearing my testimony at the trial in Guantanamo, Cuba. And I'm in the middle of the trial right now. It's going to go on for a couple of more years. And I promise you, I'm going to bring back justice for what they did to us. I'm not there for retribution. I'm there to say that are willing to give the best of justice to these animals, these worst human beings. And that's what makes America so great. No other country would do that. They would have executed them already. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you this here. As I begin to wrap up this event, I look out into this audience. You know what? Medical professionals, doctors and scientists will say all human beings are born with 5 senses. You could see, you could smell, you could taste, you could hear, and you could touch. But there's another sense called the 6th sense that some of us have. I have a very, very strong 6th sense. I'm not psychic, but I have a very strong 6th sense. And I'm looking out into the attendees in this audience today, and I'm looking at faces. I'm looking into faces right now, and you know what I see? I see a lot of despair in a lot of you people in this audience right now. A lot of you going through some really, really bad stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, how do I know that? Because life was never what I wanted it to be. Life isn't always what I needed it to be, and life wasn't always what I thought it would be. Whatever you're going through, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Somebody else is going through it with you right now. Whatever you're going through, somebody else already went through it, and somebody's going to go through it in the future. Whatever you're thinking, whatever you're feeling, whatever compromising you, it's never not that bad. It's not strange. It's not weird. Everything's okay. I've been through that many times before September 11th. I remember so many times in my life, I felt the highs and lows of the Ferris wheel. I've been turned upside down like the roller coaster. I've been spun in circles, just like the carousel, just like every single one of us. Whatever you're going through, ladies and gentlemen, don't ever despair. Life is worth living. And like a diver, there are days where you feel like you're sinking to the bottom. And if you feel that way, don't let yourself get to this point, ladies and gentlemen. Don't ever let yourself get to this point. And if you ever find yourself at the bottom of a hole, and I've been in the bottom of a hole, sometimes I put myself there, and sometimes life put me in a hole, just like every single one of us in this room. And if you find yourself at the bottom of a hole, do you know what you do? Just stop digging. Some people just never stop that. I come from Brooklyn, New York. I came from a rough, tough Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, and the 7-block radius is where every big gangster came from. All they did every morning was to get up to try to scam a ham and finagle a bagel. That's what they were about. There were three kinds of people in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York: gangsters, people who thought they were gangsters, and people who wanted to be gangsters. And a lot of them got themselves in a hole and just kept on digging. They never got themselves out. I came from that rough, tough Italian neighborhood. People say I came from a spaghetto. I had to go to school and do a show and tell. We had to get up in front of a Catholic nun in Catholic grammar school, and I forgot that we were having show and tell. We had to get up and talk about our family, and all the kids were getting up, who's following the pizzeria, who was a lawyer, who was a doctor, who was a sanitation worker, who was a firefighter, who was a police officer. And I never realized what my mother and father did for a living, but I had to get up in front of the class, and I had to kind of BS. I got up and Sister Kathleen says, "Joseph," in an Irish accent, "Joseph, what does your mom and dad do for a living?" And I was shaking like a leaf. My twin sister was in the classroom with me. She realized we both forgot about doing the show and tell. I said, "Sister Kathleen, I believe my mom and dad are in the iron and steel business." She said, Can you tell us a little more about that?" I said, "Well, I see my mother ironing ladies' dresses, and I watch my father steal anything he can get his hands on." So, ladies and gentlemen, if you ever find yourself walking through the fires of hell, I've walked through the fires of hell, literally and figuratively in my life. If you keep walking through the fires of hell, you'll get to the other side. Don't stop. And every tomorrow brings up new opportunities. Hang in there and never let go, because opportunities are going to be there to get it back together again. And you'll never know your true strength until your weakest moment. And bravery is nothing more than the coward that we let escape from inside of us. And ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why the windshield in your car is bigger than the rearview mirror. What lies ahead for you is going to be more than anything you'll ever leave behind, so never give up on yourself. Okay, stay strong like I did. All throughout my life, I had to remain strong through hardships, through September 11th, losing my career. But you know what? That's what life can do to some of us. Don't ever give up on yourself. There's people who need you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is the day of September 11th when a rescue hero will come to life. And then I got a call 3 years ago. On February 15, 2019, I was having a cup of coffee in my home in New Jersey, and it was the Fisher-Price Corporation. And, "Hey, Joe, it's the Fisher-Price Corporation. How are you? How's things going?" "Well," I said, "I'm retired now. I travel the country as a speaker. I do volunteer construction work. I'm a tour guide at Ground Zero." They said, "We're resurrecting the Rescue Hero line, and our new rescue hero is going to be you." Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the only person in the world, and this is crazy, that actually has a rescue hero made in his likeness. G.I. Joe is everybody who ever served in the military. I'm the only person in the world that actually has his own rescue hero. And I was a little taken back, and I didn't really want to accept it, but they said, "No, we're adamant about doing this." And some woman looked at the new rescue hero and looked at me, and she says, "You know, Joe, you're a little better looking in person." I said, "Lady, I've been accused of a lot of things, but good looking was never one of them, so don't worry about it." So people always ask me, the big question when I'm done, "What about your 4 children? Did you ever take them to Disney World?" Matter of fact, I did. I bought them a timeshare, and now they don't want to go anymore. Because now they're all grown up. All the 3 are registered nurses, and my son just became a paramedic for the New York City Fire Department. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you so much, Ricardo Salinas and the whole committee that made my appearance today possible. I'm so grateful. I'm going to be hanging around all day long later in the afternoon. I actually have a picture I'm going to show you real quick, a photograph when I got out of the hospital. I have many copies. This is a picture when I got out of the hospital, my first time back to Ground Zero to see it after I could walk again. And I have many copies. If anybody wants one, I'll sign it. You can have it free. We can take a picture. And if you want to talk to me personally, you want to share your story about September 11th with me, I welcome that. Once again, to Ricardo Salinas and the whole committee for having me here, I'm so grateful. And ladies and gentlemen, if I never get to see any of you ever again, I just want to say may God bless all of you always, in all ways. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The clip is sensitive. Thank you. Thank you.